I'm Mrs. Waltz, and welcome to our session on analogies. In this session, we will introduce analogies. We'll then examine the thought process or analytical thinking and reasoning that goes into problem-solving analogies. We hope that you find it helpful.
Analogies. Analogies are statements that compare or contrast ideas that seem to have no relationship, but really do. Let's look at an example of an analogy. Hand is to glove as foot is to sock. Huh? Okay, let's look closer. Let's try saying it like this. A hand wears a glove the same way a foot wears a sock. See how that works? Here's another one. Cold is to hot as wet is to dry. What does this one mean? Cold is opposite of hot the same way wet is opposite of dry. How about this one? Flamingo is to bird as grizzly is to bear. A flamingo is a type of bird the same way that a grizzly is a type of bear. When you know how to figure out the relationship in the analogy, you can even complete an analogy yourself. What was the relationship in this analogy? Cold is to hot as wet is to dry. Remember, cold and hot and wet and dry are opposites. So let's see if you can finish another analogy with opposites. High is to low as near is to what? Do you know what word would finish this analogy? High is the opposite of low, the same way that near is the opposite of far. Let's do another one we've seen before. Flamingo is to bird as grizzly is to bear. What is the relationship here? These were types of animals. Let's try to finish an analogy that uses types. Chicken noodle is to soup as grilled cheese is to sandwich. Chicken noodle is a type of soup, just like grilled cheese is a type of sandwich. The relationship? Types of food. So remember, analogies are just statements that compare or contrast two things that seem like they aren't related. All you have to do is figure out the relationship, and you've got it all figured out.
So here we are looking at analogies, and what I have right here is a poster with analogies on it. See the colon here, and our line dividing it up, which is our indication that we're getting ready to be asked to solve analogies. So just as we saw in the video, we're seeing this is to that as this is to what? So you're going to decide, imagine this is A, B, C, D, and E as our options. Which would complete this? Remember, with our analogies, we're looking for the relationship. This is to this as this is to what? Is it going to be A, B, C, D, or E? Yes. D. He says D, A, B, C, D. How many of you agree? Hands up. Those watching, hopefully you chose D. That's correct. Why, though? What's your thinking? What is the relationship that's going on here?
Because the first one's bigger and then the second one's smaller.
Okay. So, he said the same shape. So you have the same shape, but a smaller size. So we want the same shape down here, but a smaller size. Do you all agree? Yes, that's our first one. Nicely done. Let's look at the second one. What's going on here? This is to this as this is to what? A, B, C, D, or E. Which one would complete this analogy? Everybody see this one? What do you think?
C.
She says C, A, B, C. How many of you agree? She's correct. It is C, but why? Why didn't you choose one of the others? What's your thinking on this?
Because on the first one it's yellow on the bottom and then the other one is upside down. It's the blue on the top and then the yellow on the bottom.
So she said yellow on the bottom, green on the top, and that's the same here. And then yellow on the bottom, blue on the top. And then what else were you saying? The circle. What about the circle? Okay, she said the top is plain, but on the bottom she sees these lines. It's divided up differently in the same way that this one is. Nicely done. Yes? There's our second analogy. Now we're going to do another analogy where we're going to look at the items a little bit closer. Okay, so here we have another example. This is a hands-on example for you. So imagine as the analogy, this is to this, as this is to what? Who would like to physically move what the correct analogy response would be over here? Libby. Stand up, move on around, and move the item that completes the analogy correctly and explain it to us then, please. Okay. Can everybody see that? Do you agree with her? Thumbs up if you agree, thumbs down if you do not. You all agree, yes, Libby, that is correct. Can you explain it to us? Why? Why did you choose this?
Because this one has 3 of these, and it's green, and this one has 4, and it's also green. And this one has 3, and it's orange, and this one has 4, and it's also orange.
So when you looked at the relationship, what I heard you saying was the number, you went 3 to 4, 3 to 4, and also
They're the same color.
the color. And that's not the same for any of the other options. So, nice elimination. Well done.
In our next section, we're working with an analogy packet. Here are the pages that we're working through.
Okay, at this point in time, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our analogy packets. Those who are watching the video, hopefully you as well have analogy packets that you can look at. Let's go ahead and turn to the first example. Now we're going to take what we've learned about and transfer that to solving analogies on the paper in front of us. So what you can see is, number 1, it just says complete the analogy. Look at the top. And again, we're saying this is to this as, and then look underneath the line on the bottom, as this is to what? And you can look to the right to see your options are A, B, C, and D for this one. So think about that for a moment. You don't have to try to draw the shape inside the box. You're just going to circle A, B, C, or D. You don't even have to write A, B, C, or D in the box right now. If you don't want to do that, just circle A, B, C, or D for completing that. What's the relationship? Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at that. Who would like to tell us what their answer is? Brayden.
It would be D because it's a can of paint and a paintbrush, and on the bottom it's thread, and it would be D because that's a needle.
Okay, how many of you believe that the answer is D? Thumbs up. Yes, you are correct. It is. What's that relationship? What's the relationship between the paint, the can of paint, and the paintbrush?
You
That is the
use
same with the spool of
a
thread.
paintbrush to spread the paint,
Okay.
and then you use a needle to sew with the thread.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you. Let's go ahead and look at number 2 now. Take a moment. Again, solve the analogy. At the top, we have this is to this, as at the bottom you see, this is to what? A, B, C, or D. Take a moment and solve that. If you're comfortable, you can go ahead and move on to the next one as well. You can turn the page. Got the same type of thing that you're doing. What is the solution that is true for the relationship? Okay, let's pause now. Please turn back and let's look at number 2. Who has an answer? Hannah.
I think the answer would be B, because the guitar and the trumpet are both instruments, and the hammer and the saw are both tools.
How many of you agree? Thumbs up if you agree. Yes? She is correct, and that's one of the examples of Types of, yes. Types of musical instrument, types of tools. Nicely done. What about 3? Aiden.
It would be D because in the top one, leaves fall off trees and then feathers fall off birds.
How many agree with that one? Did anyone get a different answer? Well, good for you. You know what? I want to pause for a moment, though, because a lot of kids get something different. What did you get on that one?
I put worm.
Okay.
Because I just thought, I thought that trees, I have no idea what I thought, but I just thought that.
I'm glad you said that, because a lot of kids would say that one, and what happened with this example was there is a relationship. That is true. You can look at a bird and imagine a connection between a bird and a worm, right? Just like there's a connection between a tree and a leaf. But what we're looking at, and I'm so glad that you just had that situation, we want to make sure we keep the exact same kind of relationship that you see on the top with what you see on the bottom. So as he was saying, the leaf falls from the tree, it falls off of, it's a part of that can come off of, and the bird has a feather that can fall off, come off of the bird. So the correct answer that we're looking for there is D, the feather, not B, the worm. So good thinking through that one. Let's turn and go to analogy 4. Who has a response for that one? Libby?
I think it's because this one, the top one is a triangle with the left and the top triangle, and the triangle is shaded, and then it turns right, and it's the same, but it turns right. And on the bottom, the shaded ones are on the bottom, and it would have turned right, just like the top one, and it would have been B because the shaded ones are on the left then.
Did anyone else have B as their answer? Okay, that is the answer that we're looking for the logic that you just gave, the reasoning you gave. Yes, watch for which parts are shaded that have turned, where are they located as they turn, and keep that consistent for the exact same relationship, and you have it. What about 5? Aiden.
I think it would be E, because on the top one there's a triangle with black dots in the corners. And then on the second one, it's a square, which you add one side and put the black squares on the corners. And then you have a square on the bottom one, where it's the same thing. And then you need to add one more side and put a black dot on each side.
Good. Did anyone else use that logic? Did anyone else arrive at E as your answer? Raise your hand if you did. That is correct, and I love that he explained it with the number of sides went up one. We have to keep that the same. The location of the dots, the shading of the dots, all of those things were important, and that's correct. What about 6? Does anyone have an answer for number 6? Max.
C.
He says C. Does anyone else have C? Okay, C is the answer, but talk to me about your logic, the reasoning behind it.
The first one is a piece of clothing and the button would be on the shirt. As a belt, the belt buckle would be on the belt.
Excellent. I love the way he explained it as well. A lot of kids miss that one. What do you think they choose if they don't choose C? There's something that might be a stumbling block, something that trips them up. What do you think they might have? Porter?
I think that they might have chose A because most of the time you'll wear a belt over your pants to keep it tight.
Right. And that's that, we call that a distractor. It's not the correct answer. It's there and it's there to distract you. There's a relationship. Just like what we saw earlier with the bird and the worm. You have a belt and you have pants. They're related. There's a connection between them, but it's not the exact same relationship that they give you on the top. On the top you have a shirt and the button goes on the shirt, as Max was saying. And so C is correct here. The buckle goes on the belt. So nicely done. Turn And let's go ahead and look at number 7. We're going to look at a couple more before we wrap it up. Who has the answer? Braden.
I think it would be B because on the top they're both trees, and it's like a tropical tree and a non-tropical tree, and on the bottom it looks like, and it's two women, and one looks like they're wearing a bathing suit, and the other looks like they're wearing just normal clothes.
Yes. Hands up if that's the logic that you used on this, and if you chose B as well. Okay. Yes. What about 8? Let's be careful on this one. Number 8. Hannah.
I think it's A, because a sail goes on a sailboat and a pedal goes on a bike.
Who else thinks that it's A? My, you are all correct. This is one that is a difficult one for a number of people as well. So if they didn't use the logic of this part goes on the whole, in the same way that this is a part of this whole, what do you think they might have put there? What do you think they might have chosen? Hannah?
They might have chosen a wheel because the pedal is the wheel.
Right. But here's an example of where we also want to look at, you may have an answer that's partially correct, but you might have another answer that is a stronger response, that is completely accurate or correct. So watch out for those as well. Look at number 9 now. Who has the response? Yes.
B, and I think that because on the top there's the half of the rectangle and then a whole rectangle, and it looks like it doubles at an angle.
Okay.
And then on the bottom there's a triangle, and then I think it doubles on the top of it, which makes it the rhombus on B.
Nice. And I like the accurate terminology used as well. How many other people felt that B would be the response? Your rhombus. Yes, you are correct. Nicely done. Let's turn the page and we'll do one more. One more. Number 10. Order.
I think this one is A because on the top there's a pyramid and then a triangle, and we use triangles to make pyramids. And then, because a pyramid's a three-dimensional version of the triangle, and then on the bottom there's a cube, which is a three-dimensional version of the square, which is A.
Okay, how many other people chose A as a response? How many other people use that same logic? Okay, good. That is our correct answer. And so I think what you've shown me is you've been able to transfer from our video to our hands-on and poster situations and now paper pencil versions of solving analogies. Remember, when we solve analogies, we're looking for the relationship. This is to this as this is to what? What is the relationship? And we want to make sure we have the exact same kind of relationship to complete the analogy that was given as the example. So, nicely done. Thank you.
This concludes our video on the introduction to analogies. We hope that when you see an analogy, you will recognize it, and that when asked to solve an analogy, you'll know what to do. We hope this has been helpful.